Alright, so today was primarily building this contacts app. I made it with React. It's not too much special going on here. So basically how it works, you can enter your contact name. You can ignore that. That is not my email. You enter a phone number. Save. So it will show up here. And you click on it. Or click here. And you get the view of the information you just put in. You can press edit and you can edit it, but create, and that should do it. There we go. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's really my first React application. So a website. I created a tutorial before for React and it was pretty helpful. I then started using it. But I soon realized it's a lot harder than it seems. So basically that's what I'm going to talk about. Like, it's pretty straightforward to learn a new language. Once you already know the language, that's not a problem because they're kind of more or less the same. You would have to learn new features, new structure, but the basics are done. You have your for loops, your conditional statements, your function, your classes, HTML, things like that. They're all the same, all of them. But knowing how the application works and actually building something with it is two completely different things, which is why tutorials generally focus on, well, you know, your basic to-do, create a to-do list, stuff like that. Now, I often found those things not very helpful. A simple to-do application doesn't set a net. 1 second. Yep, that's me. So a to-do application doesn't really give you enough information to like go out in the world and build something. It's not very helpful. So I've never been a fan of learning that way. However, well, so WF Tutorials is primarily about kind of finding a hack. So I focus on getting all the information I needed to get started with a new language or framework. That doesn't seem to work as effectively as I thought it was. Because for the example I just shown, even with my basic get it started tutorial, I was not ready to do what was really needed. And I'm not totally finished. I'll actually load it up. I'll create a tutorial later to show how it was actually built, but it goes way outside of the scope of what I have here. I had to create class components, I had to create events and all these things, and I had to pass props and stuff. So all these things were really helpful. Table rendering, table filtering, using fetch. I think somewhere here is fetch, maybe, yeah. So these things were really helpful, but they didn't really touch the surface of what I really needed to build the actual contacts application. One of the reasons for this is because what you really need is a structure. So you need you need a way to actually structure your application, or you need to know how these applications or framework or language, what is the structure you actually supposed to be using to make it helpful or convenient to get the proper usage out of the framework, you need to know how to actually use the framework and all its benefits and features. And these are the things I think aren't really shown in tutorials, but it's probably hard to show them in tutorials because most tutorials tend to assume you're starting from basics. But is that ever really the case? I mean, you tend to learn one language, and after you learn that language, you kind of know all the languages. So what you really need to know after that is how to use different languages and frameworks correctly, instead of learning from scratch like a beginner. Of course, not everyone wants to learn this way, I assume, and a lot of the information in these guides you'd have to come back to eventually. But to just get something going, it's way too much information. You really just want to know how to do something and get it done, and have the application running, and you want to know it would be production ready, at least to some degree, to some acceptable degree, and it's not just a basic application, because you're not a noob. This is not your first time programming, so you don't really want to have to go through all the roundabouts. So when you learn a new, I think I lost my train of thought. When you decide you want to learn a new language or framework, what you'll be focusing on is, well, once you get the basics down, that should be really quickly, you would be focusing on sample applications. So that's the direction I'm going to go in next. Time out. I prefer to play with pictures. It's like OP to me. Alright, yeah, so you want to that's the direction WF tutorials will be taken next, or at some point in time. We want to focus on some sample applications that are already built but aren't overly simplified, so you can see how other people build these applications, and then you can mimic those steps and procedures yourself. That should kind of enter into the production world, and you should be good to go getting started with your new language or framework or whatever. So I should finish the React tutorial, and I'll create a video about it and write a whole article. It's been really fun. I think I'm gonna do some more React tutorials. I don't know if it's a popular framework anymore. These things get old so fast. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I have a list of applications. So contacts is one. The next one probably would be maybe a simple events manager. And it's pretty straightforward, but it's just to get a feel of it. And this one, what was confusing, I created like a few different classes and I was doing all the logic within the classes, but the problem is I can share like data between the classes. Either that wasn't a way React works, or the way to do it seemed a bit overly complex, which tends to mean I'm doing something wrong. Like if I'm searching for a solution and the answers seem overly complex and I'm not at a stage yet, it means I'm doing something wrong. So I have to kind of figure out exactly how to structure the application again to share. So what I did, there was like a parent home. So home was the main class, and I had two other class components, and I would create on my my events, my on events, like the on-click events for buttons and stuff. I created that in the home class, and I passed it as a prop Again, I'll show this. But that's like the most confusing part, because I wasn't sure. Before, I had those events within the child classes, but I can't. It was creating problems. So I did it that way, and I kind of solved the problem. I had to figure out how to get these states that the props or something like that. That was done. So yeah. So again, if I was to end this ramble, this is basically just been learning new frameworks or languages. Yes, the to-do applications are helpful, like create a to-do list. You want to create something a bit more complex, but that is the way to go, which is known. But I learned. Yeah. Alright, so that's stuff here. Be sure to check out WF Tutorials. Well, app. That's where all the tutorials are. I want to say I add tutorials daily, but that's not gonna happen. Like ever. But I'm gonna be doing more projects. So before I was just doing introduction tutorials, but I'm gonna be doing more projects now, and that should be fun. So React, maybe I'll do some Angular because my experience in his UI framework's a bit low. I'll come back and do some PHP stuff, old school. Flask, definitely. And then maybe I'll check out and see what's more popular these days. At some point we have to get into machine learning and AI, but that's I swear that's the hardest part of programming. It's probably the most interesting part. But yeah.